Good day, everyone. Welcome to Simple Codes with Aziz. In this tutorial, I'll be walking us through the most basic files that we'll be needing when we are actually developing our Laravel applications. Because not all files are files that you actually be manipulating all the time. So basically, I'll be walking you through the most important files that you'll be needing. Just stay tuned. So now let's head to our code editor to view the Laravel application that we installed. As we can see, it's already here, my Laravel. That's the name of the application. So now let's start from the top. Now, this app folder, what does it contain? When I click on it, so it is going to actually give me some other subfolders. So like the HTTP, you see this HTTP, it contains what we called controllers. Controllers, these are where we are actually going to develop our logic. So all these backend manipulation that we are going to be doing, it is going to be inside this controller. And whenever we want to make a new controller, we just have to come to our new terminal. We create a new terminal and we type PHP artisan make controller. And most time we used to start our controller name with a capital letter. Let's say I want to make a post controller now. I'm going to be like POST, capital POST. So I'm going to be using this case. So if I actually send this request now, it is going to create another controller for us. As we can see, it has generated a post controller. So this is actually where we are going to be defining our logic, the functions that we'll be creating. So this is where we are actually going to be declaring those functions. So for example, let's say public, uh, so just type the function name, public function. So let's just say tutorial. So I'm going to be passing a parameter to it. So any logic that we want to pass, we can actually pass it through this controller uh method that we have actually created. So now let's move on to the next. So we have the models. Models, this is the name of our database. The databases that we're actually creating, so everything is going to be stored under this model. So this model now, by default, Laravel usually come with the user model. It is going to create a table for us, so called the user table. So any subsequent table that we actually want to add, we can do it through our terminal. We can say PHP artisan make model, and we should note that our model will always start with a capital letter too. So let's say I want to make a model, I can call it post. So you can see that it has actually created uh, a post table for us. So this is where the table is going to be. So there are tons of things that we can actually determine in our model that we have created, such as the fillable fields in our table. We can actually specify that okay, these are the actual fields in my table that I want to be fillable. So we can actually describe all those logic inside the model folder. So now this provider, except if we actually want to install some uh Laravel extension, so that's when we'll come here and add it. And by default, most most of these extensions or modules that we want to actually install, or libraries that we want to add to Laravel. So most of them, uh, by default, they will come here and manipulate this particular app service provider file. So basically, we don't usually come inside that file. So now another essential folder here is the database. So we have the database factory, we have the database migration, and we have the database seeder. So what is the main use of this database factory? So let's say we actually want to create fake data. So let's say we created a new table, then we now want to populate data to it. So with factories, we can actually generate fake data that we can put inside our table, because generating data sometimes can actually be very, very stressful. So with Laravel factories, we can actually take care of that. So now we have the migration. This migration file is the file. The migration is a folder. So now this folder will contain series of migration files. So these migration files contains how we are actually going to be altering our table. Let's say you build a Laravel application, and I'm going to be using it too from my hand, let's say in development, not in production at the moment. So now these migration files will tell, if I want to run this migration file from my own end, so it is going to actually create the essential tables that I'll be needing with the appropriate database schema that I'll be needing in my tables. So for example now, let's say this table now is create users table. This is a database migration file that will create the users table that we saw earlier here under model. So here now, you can see the schema there. We can see the table. So we have a string call name, we have a string email. So we have lots of things, a lot of schemas that we can actually create here, so that it will create our table, our desired table for us. So we have cache table. So these are defaults that come with Laravel. So let's say I want to create my own database migration now. I can say PHP artisan make migration. So if I want to create post table, I'll just say create underscore. And there is something that we actually have to note is that uh whenever we want to create our table table migration, we should always use the plural form of it. The model will be the singular, while the migration will be the plural version. So let's say now, for example, let's say I want to create a post table. I just write create post. I'll now add s posts table. So that's how it's going to be. So PHP has and make migration create post table. So if I click on enter now, you can see that it has actually created a new migration file for us. So here we are going to just add the other schema that we want to, like the schema in this case, these are the table headings that we want in our database. So now another essential file that is here is the seeder. So the seeder, this is used to seed data into the database. So anytime that I want to do that, we can actually come here, then manipulate some data, then boom, it will be affected in our table. So now there is another folder here that is very, very essential. So this public folder, this is the folder that is directly accessible to everyone when you are in the production environment. Let's say you want to keep passports of people, so you can put them inside the public folder. So essential files that you want to make publicly accessible, so you can put them inside the public folder. So that is the essence of this public folder. So now these resources, this public folder, you can still add your, what's it called, your CSS, JavaScript files, another essential file that you might want to use. So now another file here is CSS, JavaScript. So this is where you put your JavaScript files, CSS files. So now this view so is a very important folder. So this view contains the what's it called? The view that you want to actually display to the user. Let's say now I actually have a controller here. I have a controller. I have a view here. So now this view is what will actually be displayed to the user. So there are some three files that actually work hand in hand, and they are the most essential files in Laravel. They are the most essential files in Laravel. We have the route, we have the route folder, we have the route folder which contains the web.php, we have the view, and we have the controller. So let me just try and bring in a scenario so that you can actually understand what I'm actually talking about. So let me just start my XAMPP control panel so that you can see. Let me start it. Now it has started. So now this database migration, I don't even need to migrate for now. So let me just talk about this route. So now this web.php. So now there's this particular file. This is where you define your routes. So it's saying that you want to use a get method, get request. So whenever you navigate to this slash, this function now should be triggered. So this function, it is going to return welcome, return view, welcome. So this, you don't actually have to put the extension. You don't have to put the web welcome dot blade dot php here. You don't have to put the extension. So by default, Laravel will actually understand what you mean. So now, if I come inside, this web.blade.php, so if I empty it out and I put h1 and I say welcome to my tutorial. So, and I come here and I navigate, or let me start this server, PHP artisan serve. Let me start the server. You can see the server is now running. So if I navigate to 127.0, so you can see now, this is the work of the blade. This blade is what you actually want people to see on your page. This web, this web, this is the address that you want people to navigate to. If I actually change this to .in/index now, and I save. So if I come back here, it is going to throw me an error, a 404 error, because there is nothing like the 127.0.0.1:8000. There is nothing like that. So now until I actually navigate to slash index, so that is the address that is actually recognized in this application that I'm actually uh developing right now. So now, let's now say that I don't want to develop my logic inside, I don't want to develop my logic inside the web file directly. So I can actually change this to to be read by my controller, so that whenever I reference my controller, he is going to recognize it. So if I say get request, so slash index, so I'm actually going to have the controller name here, which is the post controller. So then the function that I want to use inside this controller. So let me call the function. Let me come here, post controller. Do I have any function? Okay, tutorial. Let me call this index. Then I'll come inside my web. Then I'll call index. Then if there's any name that I want to give it, I can give it a name called index. Then I save it. So now I can actually get rid of this. You can see that this is actually showing me an error because you have to import your controller inside your web.php. So I've already installed an extension, so it's going to do that for me. Import namespace. So you can see that it's going to add this line on your screen. It's going to say use app slash http slash controller slash post controller, because this is the address. This is the address. So if you want to actually install that extension, so I think is PHP Blade Formatter, or okay, Laravel Extra Intelligence. That's the name of that extension. So now the next thing is to come inside my post controller. So I can say return view. So welcome. So then I save it, then come back inside my my page, then refresh. You can see that it is actually doing the same thing. It is doing the same thing. So what I just did is that I created a controller, then a function inside that controller called index. So I'm going to come inside this web.php. Then I created the route. Route is the name of that particular address, of that particular URL that I want to create. So this route, the first parameter will be the address. The second parameter will be the controller. So the controller, you know that this controller was created in a class, as a class, then it contains a particular function called index. So the same thing that we have actually done here, the post controller class, then the function index. So I call the index function inside the post controller class. So, and it's returned the view called welcome. So you can see these views. We have views here. So the welcome view. So that is basically what we will be needing the most when we are developing our Laravel application. So now we also have a particular folder, another folder here called storage. So all the files that we only want to use inside our application. So we can put them. The files that are inside the storage are not accessible by anybody. So it is only meant for development purpose. So that's what you keep there. So now file. There's another essential file here called .env. Very, very important. So this is where we set up our database. We give our database name. So as you can see, first thing here is the app name. So the app URL. If you are actually in production, you can set this to your base URL. So the bug here is true. So when you are in production, you set it to false. So here now, this database connection, because now I'm using SQLite. So if I want to switch to my SQL database, I'll just uncomment this. I'll uncomment this. Then I'll change this to my SQL or any other type of database that you actually want to use. So this is where you set it up. So the database username, root, the password if you have any. So the name of your database. So you can set it up here. So there are a lot of things that you can actually do inside this environment folder. You store your credentials, your username and password, all these API keys, you can actually store them inside this environment folder. It is very safe and it is the best practice to put your credentials inside the .env folder. So these are basically the files that you'll be needing. So another files here is the composer.json. So all the modules, libraries that you have actually installed in Laravel, so they are going to come here. So if you added a new package, so it is going to come below here. So that anybody that wants to make, if you copy your application to for someone now, so it is going to come inside this file, look for all the libraries that will be needed to run your application so that it will install them and take you to the application. So these are files that you'll be needing, the most important files. You don't need every file. So, but these files are very, very essential. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have been able to learn a few things in this video, and I promise to give you more interesting videos in this Laravel tutorial series. Just make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.